Hello and welcome to what works for me mostly. So today I'm going to talk about gathering and preparing walnuts to store. And so it is the fall, and I just happened to be standing under a walnut tree, and you can see there are plenty of walnuts up in the tree. And what will happen is they will just fall out and land on the ground. Matter of fact, here's one right here. I didn't put this here, God did. But anyway, they'll just fall out of the tree, and they come in this husk. And in order to get to the nut meat, there's some steps that you have to go through. If you're out here collecting walnuts during this time of the year, you may get hit in the head with a walnut as it falls out of the tree. But anyway, what I use this old laundry hamper, and I just go around walking under the tree, picking up the walnuts and putting them in a laundry hamper. And then the next step is to take the husk off of the walnuts. And to do that, I put them in the driveway. So you can see right here that I've actually done 3 batches. And so I collected up, I don't know, half of that hamper's worth of walnuts, maybe 20 minutes of picking up walnuts, and I pour them out in the driveway, and then run them over with the car, I run them over with the tractor. You know, just really what you're trying to do is squash them to where they crack. I'll sort of demonstrate. You can step on them too. And really you're just trying to squash them where they crack and get this husk off. You know, so you could just throw them on the ground and step on them. And that's what you're looking for. That's the walnut. And so after I've run them over, I come out here and I pick them up because they're mostly squashed already. I've already picked up most of these. There might be a few in here, but most of this is just walnut husk, which could be used to make a dye if you wanted to, because these things get they're pretty. You want to wear old clothes when you do this, because it'll turn you stained. You can see my fingers are sort of stained, if you can tell. But the next step, after I've gotten the husk off of the walnut, I put them in a water bath. As are a lot of other things on a homestead, it's water intensive. And so probably doesn't do you very good if you're having to pay for your water, so drill you a well. But anyway, what I've got here is a batch that I did earlier today. And so this is what the walnut looks like when it comes out of the husk. And you can see it's got this black material on it, which is part of the husk. And so what I do, I float them in the water bath. And what you're looking for is some of them will actually float. I've got a couple over here from earlier batches, and we'll see if they still float. And they do. And the ones that float, the nut's not any good. And so I've got a little box that I've been putting them in, the ones that float, and I'll crack them and see, make sure that they're no good. But what happens is the nut's gone bad, some kind of worms got in there or something. But anyway, it's not any good. So it's a good idea to stir them while they're in there, you know, so that you can make sure that they're not laying on top of each other, and then they'll float. And then I'll leave it in here, I don't know, overnight really. But it's good to dump the water out. If you move around, we'll see how dirty the water is. The water is that dye, really. You can see how black the water is just from the husk material coming off of the walnut.
I'd like for you to save me some of that water.
Yeah, you can have some water. Okay, and so after we've separated the ones that float from ones that don't float, the next day I will come down here and clean those walnuts. And to do that, I use a pressure washer. and a couple of old milk crates. And so really to do it, it's sort of easy. This is a inexpensive pressure washer I probably got from Harbor Freight. It's electric, don't have to worry about gas or any of that. Just plug it in, put the water to it and turn it on. And what you do, what I do, if you can see, the milk crate has holes in the bottom of it. And so as you're pressure washing the walnuts, you know, like this, you're pushing the water down in there, and then the black stuff that we saw in those others, this walnut looked just like those 4 or 5 hours ago. Now, I'm not saying that I pressure wash for 4 or 5 hours, probably about 15 minutes on each one of these baskets. And I do it about, you know, three or four times, just sort of rotating the baskets around, and you get all of that black stuff off the walnut. And so this is a walnut without the husk at all. You can see a little bit of husk on the end. I hadn't figured out how to get that off. But anyway. So after that, I'll dry them in these crates overnight. You see that's about how many you really want them to move around in there while you're pressure washing. That way they'll sort of roll over. If you got too many of them in there, then you know it's kind of hard to direct your water to them. But you know, as you pressure wash them, they're sort of rolling around in there, and you're knocking the black stuff off, and it just runs. You can see it all over the ground here, where it just runs out. So after you do that, and now you need to dry them. And why do you need to dry the walnuts? Because if you've ever opened a walnut, then what you find is the nut meat is, I don't want to say swollen, but it's sort of inside the little crevices of the inside of the walnut, and it's very tight and it's hard to get it out. And so what you really want to do is dry the walnut, and what happens is that nut meat sort of shrinks up a little bit, and it's easier to get out of the walnut when you break it open. So I've got my first set drying now, and they'll dry a few days. There right here. This set's drying. I'll put these in bags. And what kind of bags do I use? Well, I'll tell you, the mesh bags. Where do you get the mesh bags? Well, if you ever buy onions or potatoes or things like that at the grocery store, they usually come in a mesh bag. I've been saving mesh bags for years. I used to use them to make little hammocks to hold my cantaloupes when I grow them on the trellis. And you just make a hammock to hold the cantaloupe so it doesn't put too much weight on the vine. But I'm going to use those mesh bags to store my walnuts while they're drying. They need to dry about 2 or 3 months before they're ready to crack. So right now it's September, probably around end of November, end of December, when it's cool out, I'll start a little fire out on the back deck and probably sit there and crack walnuts and get walnut meat out of them. How do you crack walnuts? Well, let me show you. As a matter of fact, let me get one of these, a floater, and we'll crack it. You need a hammer and a hard surface, and really just set it pointy end up and beat on it till it opens up. Now this is one of them that floated, and you can see inside here there's a little bit of walnut meat right there, but it's sort of spongy, and so it was going bad, and that's probably why the guy floated. So that's walnut collecting 101, and it's what works for me mostly. Thank you.